So the learning outcomes for this unit, pull them up on my computer here. It looks to me like we've got several learning outcomes. Remember, these are the things that I hope you're able to do by the end of the unit. The first one is that I hope you're able to describe the main ways that the United States and foreign governments protect rare, threatened, and endangered species. In the United States, that's the Endangered Species Act. Within other nations, many have policies very similar to our Endangered Species Act that protect threatened and endangered species that occur within those countries. And then at the international level, we have CITES, the Convention for the International Trade of Endangered Species. I would like you to be able to describe the ways that science upholds conservation practices for species listed on the Endangered Species Act. What's the role of science in listing species and in protecting them and making decisions about habitat conservation and other methods of protection for those species? And there are some controversies around the way that science is used in the listing and conservation process relative to endangered species. And so I'd like us to be able to describe some of those controversies. We will also look at some current policy proposals circulating around the legislative branch of the federal government to amend the Endangered Species Act and talk about the benefits and the challenges of some of those policies. Next, I'd like us to be able to use the Federal Endangered Species Act as the starting point for describing the differences between the different ways that states and foreign countries protect endangered species. So we'll use the Federal Endangered Species Act kind of as a benchmark for comparison and talk about the similarities and differences between various policies designed to protect rare and threatened species around the world and throughout the United States. And then I'd like us to be able to describe the way that different policy instruments like bans and performance standards and technology standards are used to protect biodiversity. We will talk about CITES, and I'd like you to be able to justify the approach that CITES takes to protecting threatened and endangered species around the world. Remember that CITES focuses on international trade. It doesn't actually protect the species when they are within their host country. And that's an important kind of nuance to understand, but there's a very good reason for that, and I'd like us to be able to kind of describe that reason. And then CITES has 3 different lists of protected species on it. The Endangered Species Act has 2, threatened and endangered, but CITES has its Annex 1 list, its Annex 2 list, and its Annex 3 list. And I'd like us to know the differences between those lists. And then finally, I would like you to be able to describe the different ways that hunting and fishing and trapping policies, like those within New York State, allow for the killing and the taking of wildlife, and how these policies are designed to balance human use and consumption of biodiversity in order to achieve long-term sustainability of our wildlife populations. In order to do that, our New York State hunting and fishing policies use several different kinds of policy instruments, and I'd like us to be able to describe those different policy instruments. We'll learn about all of those when we get to the New York State hunting and fishing portion of this unit.